Hi everyone and welcome to Bonnie Astrology. Today we are discussing the electric, surprising and shocking full moon in Aquarius happening on the 19th of August 2024, and of course what it means for your zodiac sign. As always, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you wish to see more regular astrology content from me, and if you want to follow me on any of my socials, they are listed below. Similarly, if you want to book a reading for September or October, the information listed in the description box is the only place that you can get me. Bear in mind, it's Mercury retrograde and I'm a little bit slow at responding as it is, but if your email is there, I will be responding to it in August to take bookings for September and October. So that's the only place that you can get me. And just for reference, because there are a lot of scammers operating on YouTube in the comment section and on Instagram posing as my account and the accounts of various other astrologers, tarot readers, a lot of people in this space, just bear in mind that I will not reach out directly to you offering a reading, and that's just me saying that is just the easiest way to validate for you that it will not be me soliciting a reading from you, offering you any kind of service. You have to contact me first. Again, this is just an easier way to understand that I won't do that. That is what scammers do. So by way of making sure that you know that, I have to announce it here. So let's have a look at this full moon and see who is most affected. So this full moon is happening, as I say, in the sign of Aquarius. It's happening on the 19th of August and it is happening at 27 degrees of Aquarius. Now this is very, very important for those of us who have placements or angles at 27 degrees of the fixed signs, most notably Aquarius. But those who have 27 of Taurus, those who have 27 of Leo, and those who have 27 of Scorpio are going to feel this very intensely too, because you will already be experiencing a Uranus hard aspect transit. So whether that is the conjunction if you have a Taurus placement at 27 degrees, the opposition if you have a Scorpio placement at 27, the square if you have Aquarius or Leo at 27, you will be feeling this full moon quite intensely. And it may center around the different themes that I'm going to discuss in this video. So do pay extra attention if you have those placements. Of course, this can be happening and affecting all of us, particularly collectively, but this is going to be impacting those who do have placements at 26, 27, 28 of the fixed signs the most, just for reference. So Aquarian energy, when we have a full moon in Aquarius, a full moon is a point of illumination. It brings peak energy, peak experiences. It tends to bring what is hidden or what has already been going on behind the scenes to the surface. Whether that is that you are debuting something you've been working on, whether that is that you're having a very vivid dream that clarifies how you feel on an issue, you're realizing how you feel about a certain situation, you're realizing something has not been working for some time and it needs to change. It usually brings what has already been going on behind the scenes or below the surface to the surface and front and center. So in the sign of Aquarius, this can be surrounding themes of humanitarianism, groups of people, teams, social networking, friendship. And it can also bring rebellion, protest, revolution, and very unsettled times of change. And the reason that it feels quite unsettled is because this full moon is going to be in a square with Uranus. Now, Aquarian energy at its core brings forward these themes: humanitarianism, groups of people, social issues. And that square to Uranus, any square from Uranus brings about a sense of unsettled energy. It's a bit of a wild card. It can be shocking, it can be surprising, it can seem out of the blue. It rarely is out of the blue, truly, but we may not have noticed it. So there can be moments of clarity with this full moon. And there can be a need for change, a need to release something quite quickly. It can also be a breakthrough energy as much as it can sometimes be a bit of a breakdown energy. And adding to the reason that it's a bit of a breakdown energy in some cases is because we have Pluto in Aquarius still. And Pluto is about breaking down old structures and old paradigms that no longer work for us as it moves between Capricorn and Aquarius. It tends to bring about a lot of social change. It changes society as we know it. The way that we've always been living is changing. And it, of course, centers around themes of revolution and rebellion. When we think back to the last Pluto in Aquarius transit, obviously none of us were here, but we can read about it in the history books, the French Revolution, the American Revolution, those type of things. Pluto and Aquarius theme. So revolution and rebellion can be absolutely exacerbated at this full moon, particularly because the Jupiter Saturn square that is occurring is linked to the Jupiter Saturn conjunction in Aquarius in December 2020. And we think about how much the world has changed since then, how much society has changed. Just one example being, of course, with that December 2020 conjunction, the way that people worked changed from 2020. People moved from doing, in a lot of cases, very solid 9-to-5s in an office. This changed to hybrid working, remote working, being able to rely more on technology. Aquarius is associated with technology, Zoom calls, less of a need to travel globally in order to go to business meetings, to conferences. A lot of these could be done via technology due to the technological advancements and moving towards technology instead of the way things were done before with the Capricorn structures and systems in place. There's also been a change in what we want from leadership. Now, leadership is a theme at the time of this full moon because it is coinciding just a day after the Sun-Mercury cazimi in Leo. So this can bring news and clarity because it's part of the retrograde cycle, news and clarity surrounding leadership. Leo is a sign that is associated with leadership and people in entertainment as well. So there can be news, there can be clarity. Cazimis bring significant ideas, understandings, clarity, shifts, news. And the fact that this cazimi is going to be squaring Uranus means that this can be a bit of a shock. This can be a bit of a surprise. Now, the last time that Mercury and Uranus got into a square was the full moon in Capricorn in July. And that was the full moon at 29 degrees of Capricorn, where Joe Biden announced that he was no longer running for re-election in 2024. This full moon happens to coincide with the Democratic Party convention, and there may be some development of that storyline. There may be some development of who is going to be running, who is not going to be running, and there could be a wild card potentially coming in with this full moon, or there could be some sort of shock or surprise that we did not necessarily see coming, but as I say, may have been going on behind the scenes anyway. This rarely brings things completely out of the blue, even if they feel like it at the time. So do pay attention under this full moon. If you're interested in American politics, there's likely going to be something developing at this time. At that convention, it's a bit of a surprise, a bit of a shock, but it brings clarity. In our own lives, with this cazimi, we can be getting clarity of where we have perhaps not been stepping into an authentic role of leadership in our own lives, where we've been handing over authority, power, where we have been following the leader, so to speak, in a way that no longer makes sense. We need to shake it up, we need to change it, we need to break free of thinking someone else is better equipped to make decisions for who we are and how we want to live. So for example, with this cazimi being in Leo, wherever it's falling in your chart, you might think, oh, I feel like I need to be more of a leader here, or I need to change the way that I'm leading because it's no longer working for me. You need to take the lead in some sort of situation. You might notice at this point leaders stepping down in the workplace, people who've maybe always been there leaving, surprise exits from people that maybe thrusts upon you a leadership role of your own, or a bit more autonomy, or a bit more of an opportunity to try something different, to make something better for where you are and how much things have changed, because the old ways are changing. And the amazing thing about Aquarius energy is that Aquarius questions the way things have always been done, because Aquarius thinks about the future. And Aquarius tends to think about what's best for the people. And in some cases, rules and paradigms that we've built once served a purpose, but they can change. We don't have to continue doing things the way that they've always done. As we change and develop as societies, as technology changes and develops as a society, we might be noticing that there are things that simply need to change under this full moon. So this can bring a lot of surprises, this can bring a lot of shocks, it can bring breakthroughs and understanding of what needs to change, what needs to be done. Uranus is in Taurus, what needs to be changed financially. Financial shocks can occur, of course, collectively, but we can also perhaps find in some ways people may be immediately liberated from something that they thought they were stuck doing or thought they were stuck having to do. There can be liberation at play as well. T-squares tend to be, especially in the fixed signs, a bit dramatic, a bit unnerving, a bit tense. So remember to stay grounded around the time of this full moon as well. Sometimes change is necessary. In the fixed signs, can be an energy where we have, because things have been familiar, we have seen them as stable, we have seen them as concrete, but they are not necessarily so. Fixed signs are notoriously associated with great change and great transformation. So it might be a case with this full moon that it is worth noticing what really has to go, what really has to change, and where you could actually feel a little bit more liberated and a little bit more in your own authenticity with your choices, with your understanding of who you are and your essence. You can make changes that reflect your better understanding of self and your better understanding of the future. Aquarius is a sign that rules the future, and with Pluto in Aquarius, the future is changing. It's worth noting with Pluto in Aquarius, the future can also seem kind of foreboding. Pluto is a very intense, psychologically, sometimes disturbing energy, so we can be a bit scared of what the future has in store for us as things change. And that is quite a natural way to feel while Pluto is in Aquarius, but we can always shift that fear to empowerment, having a sense of who we are, what we need, and what we know about ourselves, and making our choices accordingly. Now, it's interesting that Aquarius is the sign associated with the future, and this full moon is obviously an illumination. It might illuminate what we want for the future. The Sabian symbol for this really fascinated me, because this is for 28 degrees of Aquarius, because we round up. A tree felled and sawed to ensure a supply of wood for the winter. So this is about providing for the future and what it is that you want. Making changes at this full moon that perhaps set a better future in place for you. And I think for most, that is rooted in wanting authenticity. Authenticity. I think with this full moon, making changes for the future is about having them rooted in authenticity. What it is that you think will work best for you in the long run, or what it is even that you think will work best for the collective in the long run. And perhaps having the courage to say that to yourself or to others that you are connected with. But another reason that this full moon may feel a little bit unsettled is because it is the last full moon before eclipse season. So we know that change is coming. This full moon can be a time to reset something in terms of letting go of old visions of the future, old ideas of what works best for you in your life, because we are changing. It's a constant and consistent understanding that we are going to change in this world. The future is starting to look very different for a lot of people. Some things are going to start to make absolutely no sense. Things that were regarded as stable and normal may now be regarded as something that is bizarre. That happens in history, and it might also be a case that the people and the things and the ideas that we used to view, or society used to view, as being weird or peculiar are now starting to make a lot more sense. So with this coming up to eclipse season, where the fates take hand, this can be a time where you are more empowered to make change, to understand what needs to be done, even if you don't act on it right away, because of course we're in a Mercury retrograde. This does coincide very closely to the cazimi, so we are getting a lot of clarity in what needs to change, but nothing needs to happen immediately. And one of the reasons for that is because there is not just one T-square occurring at this full moon, there's actually two. The second T-square, which is really one of the main characters of 2024, is the Jupiter Saturn square, which has a T-square this time because of Venus in Virgo. So let's have a little look at the T-square in the mutable signs. So Jupiter and Saturn, as I said before, last met up in December 2020, and they met up in the sign of Aquarius, in the first degree of Aquarius. And Pluto has since entered Aquarius, will retrograde back into Capricorn temporarily from from September to November, and it's going to be covering that degree. So we're really feeling intense change when it comes to this Jupiter-Saturn alignment. And the Jupiter-Saturn square is quite contradictory in its nature, because Jupiter and Saturn are very different bodies. They embody very different characteristics. A square, in any case, tends to present some kind of obstacle, but that obstacle is also an opportunity. The square can sometimes bring about an obstacle or a hurdle that we need to overcome in order to make something a success or achieve something. And a lot of the time the squares can be this really good push to make something happen, this really good push to enact change and to meet some sort of target or some sort of goal in our life. It's going to require action on our part. It's also going to require commitment, particularly because Saturn is really winning in this conversation. Jupiter does not function so well in Gemini, and Saturn is really saying we need to be very sure of what we're committing to. We need to be very sure of how much we can commit to it, where we need to restrict, where we need to go without, where we need to put in the hard work. And Jupiter, of course, is about our ideology, our beliefs, and growth. So with Saturn and Jupiter in this square, in part it is saying we need to cut back, we need to restrict, we need to dedicate, we need to work hard towards something, likely in the Pisces part of our chart. And Jupiter is saying, but we also need to see the bigger picture, we need to grow. And we need to get a little bit more information with it being in the sign of Gemini. So on one hand, you might notice that you're kind of feeling like you really need to buckle down and work hard on something and commit and get serious about something, while you're simultaneously growing your perspectives and you're growing your beliefs and you're seeing things from a different perspective, and you're still continuing that growth. And sometimes you're having to pull back a little to grow a bit more, and sometimes you're having to grow a little less and commit a little bit more. This is an ongoing conversation because Saturn and Jupiter square again in December, Christmas Eve. And then they square again in, I think it is June 2025. Yes, June 2025. But in that conversation, it's so different because Jupiter's going to be in Cancer and Saturn is going to be in Aries. So two completely different signs. And that will feel very different because Jupiter loves being in Cancer and Saturn kind of hates being in Aries. So we'll have a very different energy for that. But in December, when Saturn is direct and Jupiter's retrograde, in this time around, Saturn is retrograde and Jupiter is direct, there is this back and forth between the two planets, and it can be a tough negotiation between where we're growing and where we're restricting and where we're committing and where we're finding freedom. It can be a very contradictory energy. So if you think back to December 2020 and what storylines were going on in your life, what you were starting to think or believe, particularly surrounding a different vision of the future for yourself. It was in Aquarius. Pluto was going over that degree. Pluto going over that degree and activating that conjunction, coinciding with this square, is saying that society is changing. Humanity is changing. The structures that no longer work are changing. And in a lot of cases, this is bringing protest, it's bringing rebellion. It is bringing people back to the streets, trying to reclaim their power, so to speak. Jupiter does rule the legal system, it rules the court system. And Saturn can be associated with what is no longer working. This is a chance for all of us to look at what's no longer working, where we're feeling tired, where we're feeling frustrated, and understand that sometimes certain things with Saturn need to be broken down in order to be rebuilt. And it is likely around the time of this square that there is a lot of unrest, there is a lot of protest, there is a lot of rebellion, particularly with both T-squares activating that type of energy, that type of people. Pluto in Aquarius has always been about the power of the people. So you see people gathering en masse, people gathering in groups, people protesting, people wanting to take back their power in some way, or challenging the structures that we have in place as they are. With Saturn being in retrograde, it is a wonderful time to reflect on what's no longer working for you, what is no longer working in general, even if it's something you've committed to for a long time. Sometimes that breaks down, sometimes that requires to change. Sometimes it also requires us to act that little bit harder, to put in the hard work. And perhaps with, scaling something back, with restricting, with accepting limitations, there can be a lot of room for growth. There can be a lot of room for wisdom with Jupiter, and Jupiter may be changing our beliefs surrounding what it is that we want. Those can be changing at all times. Because it's mutable, it can be a little bit fickle. This can change quite often, and it can be more malleable and more open to change, and people are perhaps feeling a little bit more open-minded on what that could look like at this time. With Venus being in Virgo and forming a T-square with this square of Jupiter and Saturn, this can be a case where we're thinking of it very much from a relationship perspective, from a perspective of connection. Venus in Virgo can be notoriously quite critical and can be quite harsh in judgment. So that can be an energy that comes up that feels a little bit frustrating. It can be when we're trying to make changes that work best for us, or we can have beliefs about what would work best for society, and other, you know, you can feel someone criticizing you. But with Venus being the connector of this T-square, it feels as though you have to listen to your heart. You have to listen to what it is that you want. You have to listen to with it being Virgo, I guess, the details of what it is that you want, figuring out what the details are. With Jupiter not working so well in Gemini, sometimes it can be kind of confusing. Is this the detail or is this the bigger picture? What is the bigger picture? I'm not seeing the forest for the trees. And you might want to focus a little bit more on the details of what it is that you want. Get specific when you're thinking about what needs to change. It's okay to be specific sometimes. And I think with Venus being in Virgo, the detail that is missing may become apparent, particularly in a relationship perspective. And it can be, there's a fine line between it being critical and constructive. So just be mindful of that at this time. This square between Jupiter and Saturn is going to be continuing. As I say, it's happening again in December. I believe that in December it is Mercury in Sagittarius that comes along and connects to make this a T-square again. But the interesting thing about that is that Mercury and Jupiter are going to share mutual reception. Jupiter is going to be retrograde, Saturn is going to be direct, and it's going to be the sense of understanding where we need to commit, where we need to put in the work, but also maybe having a bit more of an idea of what that looks like, both detail-wise and both bigger picture-wise, with that mutual reception taking place. I do have to say, I think I've said this in the August video, but I think it is quite funny that we get these big Jupiter-Saturn connections so far in December. It's almost like Christmas is going to be, for those who celebrate Christmas or those who celebrate Yule or any of the holidays that happen around December, it is going to be quite a reflective period of the year ahead, and understanding that as we go year by year since 2020, it feels like the vision of the future is consistently changing. And so we have to be a little bit more malleable and adaptive to that, with this being in a mutable sign. So as always, I'm going to pull a tarot card for this full moon. I always pull them for the lunations. And let's have a little look. There is a fly buzzing around, but I think it kind of adds to the energy of a full moon in Aquarius. It is quite buzzy. And it's a bit irritating, so I feel like the square to Uranus is a bit irritating. Can be. So let's have a little look at what's coming up for this full moon in Aquarius. What is the collective message? And as always, let me know how you're feeling about this full moon in Aquarius, how you are experiencing it. I feel like a lot of people are going to be kind of anxious. The Eight of Swords. So Mercury squaring Uranus being a part of this, the square to Uranus in general, it is quite mentally frustrating, challenging. I think with this, it is a reminder with the Eight of Swords always that our thoughts can perhaps be what traps us. Our thoughts can be perhaps what makes us feel stuck. It's the way we're thinking about a situation. It's the way that we're viewing a situation and the way that we're perceiving it. She's got a blindfold on, so she might not be necessarily seeing all the facts or seeing all the information. I think this can be where we become stuck in our own thinking, or we put ourselves in a box. We trap ourselves in this prototype where we think we should be doing certain things, we should be saying certain things, we should be believing certain things. And the Aquarian energy always comes around to say it's okay to think differently. You know, whether it is that you're thinking differently from the masses on an issue, whether it is that you're thinking differently from your friends, from your peers, whether it is that you simply see things differently. Being okay with that and not letting yourself get trapped in a box or trapped in a version of you that no longer resonates because you think you should. Aquarian energy comes along to teach us to be very true and authentic to who we are, what it is that we like, what it is that we think, and sort of allow yourself to be regarded as different, or allow yourself to be regarded as a bit bizarre. It reminds me of in The Craft, whenever the girls are getting off the bus and the bus driver says, "Careful of the weirdos, girls," and she says, "We are the weirdos, mister." Aquarian energy always reminds me of that, but I think with this, it's being okay with what makes you different or what makes you unique, at least in your own environment, because, you know, there can be things about you that are very unique where you are, but if you went somewhere else, it would not necessarily be so. If you're with a group of people, you'd probably fit in quite well. I think really there's no such thing as what is normal. We just think there are. We kind of create those rules to connect and group together. But in some cases that shifts, and in some cases that changes, and that can feel very unnerving. I think as things change, we can definitely feel a bit nervous and a bit anxious at this full moon, and it's quite wiry. Last year I had a series of Uranus squares and oppositions. In fact, Uranus was forming a T-square with my sun and moon for most of the year, and I remember just waking up some mornings and feeling so anxious and not having a reason, not having a why, other than I felt quite stuck. And in some cases these frustrating, anxious energies come along because they're teaching us something needs to change, something has to go. We need to find a bit of freedom, we need to find more authenticity, we need to find more room to grow and adapt and change our minds, and we need to think outside the box. Maybe intuitively so with the High Priestess. Maybe seeing things from a more spiritual perspective in our life, or doing the things that perhaps other people don't understand. There's a lot about the High Priestess that people don't understand because she tends to hide things. And I think with this full moon we may be seeing that it is okay to go against the grain. It is okay to think differently. You don't even necessarily have to express it. You don't even necessarily have to act on it. But it's about accepting the parts of you that are a little bit different. But the High Priestess, maybe what makes you different is that you are into this type of thing. You're into astrology, you're into tarot, you're into divination, you're into spirituality of some form that is different from what you experience around you. And with the traditional ruler of this full moon being in the sign of Pisces and being in a square to Jupiter, your beliefs may change. What it is that you connect with spiritually may change as well under this full moon, and that's okay to change as well. But don't become trapped in an idea, don't become trapped in an ideology, don't become trapped in anything that you could think differently about. Thinking differently will be, thinking outside the box will be your savior under this full moon. Thinking differently to what you have been thinking so far, or what those around you are thinking differently in general. That is what I have for this full moon. I hope you have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Aries, welcome to the full moon in Aquarius for your sign. So Aries, I hope you're doing really well. This full moon is illuminating your sector of friendships, social networks, the groups that you're a part of, the communities that you're a part of. It's also your vision of the future. So this could be an area that has some surprises in store under this full moon. That can be sometimes with full moons that something reaches an emotional crescendo, an emotional peak, something may end, something may need to be released. So for some of you, this could be that if you're part of a particular team, whether this is through your work, your working team, your social group, your friendship group, somebody may make a shock exit. Somebody might be leaving a team or a group that you're a part of. It might also be that perhaps you're realizing under this full moon that a friendship is coming to an end, or someone that you considered a friend was not necessarily who you thought that they were. It can be that perhaps also your vision of the future is changing somewhat. All of these things may be changing because of a change in values, or even a financial change, because Uranus is squaring this full moon, and Uranus is in your sector of worth and value, whether that be financial, whether that be just your values in life, whether that also be your self-confidence. Because Uranus going through the second, it is incredibly innovative. So when it comes to making money, you can find new ways of making money that you didn't expect throughout this transit. It can be as well that your finances fluctuate a little bit. It's not necessarily the most stabilizing of energy. There can be a lot of ups and downs. There can be a lot of changes. And it can also be that perhaps your self-confidence, your self-worth is also a little bit up and down and shaky at this time. Maybe you're not necessarily feeling so grounded or secure in yourself. Now, this can also be that perhaps due to the fact that the GEMINI is occurring the day before this full moon, that you're getting some creative clarity, you're getting some clarity or maybe even information, and it can be surprising information, maybe from your children, or maybe from your love life. Maybe there's some clarity coming in when it comes to dating or potential romantic suitors or past romantic suitors. It can also be that if you're working as part of a group creatively, you're getting some insight and clarity as to what to do there. If there has been a little bit of back and forth due to the retrograde Aries, you might be becoming aware under this full moon what needs to change, what needs to be amended or adapted when it comes to a child, when it comes to a pregnancy, when it comes to your love life, when it comes to your creative life or your creative endeavors, or maybe even your inner child work that you've been doing. With there being not only a fixed T-square but a mutable T-square, there are other components to look at, Aries. For example, Jupiter going through your 3rd house at the moment can definitely open you up and expand your life through your community, through your neighbours, through your siblings, through your local environment, you know, being involved in the town that you grew up in or the town that you live in, being involved with the community, being known in your community, having a little bit of recognition there with Jupiter. It can also be that maybe you're expanding your social media life, how much you post, how much you put out there, how much you're visible in your networks. And maybe this is revealing people that are not necessarily as much on your side as you thought with this full moon. It can be with the square to Saturn in your 12th. This as a transit, Aries, is a time where you are perhaps dealing with some past deceit, betrayals, wounding from the past that maybe actually bothers you a little bit more than you thought. Sometimes we simply suppress and shove things down and we think they don't bother us anymore, and then they come up again with a 12th house transit and we realize, oh, okay, this has been getting to me. I can see this pattern, I can see this experience is repetitive, or you know, that can be where you're dating the same person over and over again in different forms because of a relationship betrayal in the past. It can be where you realize that there are some things beneath you, past experiences that were maybe stemming from karmic relationships or karmic encounters or events. And by karmic I mean fated, as in they taught you something big, but maybe you haven't integrated or learned the lesson yet, Aries. So under this full moon with the mutable square between Jupiter and Saturn, and it's a T-square with Venus, but I'll get to that in a second, maybe you're realizing where you need to say more, be seen in your local communities, and where you need to retreat and heal and work through some past stuff. So where you can communicate with others and be seen, but where you're realizing there are some fears and some hesitancies and betrayals that you need to work through in order to be more visible. Some of you might actually have some social media or internet trauma that you're working through as well. Now, Venus is in your 6th house, forming a T-square with Jupiter and Saturn. So when it comes to Venus and Saturn in this opposition between your 6th and your 12th house, you need to be able to get on well with your co-workers, your employees, the people in your workplace, while also taking time for yourself. You need to be supportive to people you work with while also taking the time you need for yourself. It can also be that a boundary needs to be put in place with working relationships where they're getting a little bit muddied. It can also be that perhaps someone in your workplace is having to prioritize something in their life and you're figuring out how that's going to work for you. Now, the square between Jupiter and Venus is saying, okay, well, I want to say more, I want to communicate more, I want to show the work that I'm doing, but I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to put out too much. Or if you're working out or exercising where maybe you're feeling like you're so involved in so many different things, you're very busy, that you're trying to figure out how you can prioritize your own self-care and health and well-being, Aries. So I'm going to pull you a tarot card and see what we get. So we have the 6 of Swords, which is lovely. Better times ahead. Overcoming hardship, conflicts resolved. With the Venus-Saturn opposition, maybe you're having to resolve some conflicts at work. You're moving towards peace. So maybe you're overcoming some sort of hardship you've experienced in a group, in a team, and you're able to move forward, Aries. You're seeking calmer waters. And I think a lot of you are maybe working through some past experiences of betrayal. Maybe to do with friendship, or maybe to do with where you felt ostracized or left out or bullied or alienated by people, and how that's affecting your friendships and your ability to work as part of a team now. That is what I have for you, Aries, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Taurus, welcome to the full moon in Aquarius for your sign. So Taurus, this full moon is happening at the top of your chart in a very professional sector. So for a lot of you, there can be something significant occurring at work under this full moon. And if you're not working, I'll get to that in a second as well. There's more to the 10th house than our professional life. But for a lot of you Taurians, this can be where perhaps maybe some of you are retiring. And this is maybe quite surprising to people around you. Maybe some of you are leaving a job. And again, this is a surprise move from you. Some of you could have a boss leaving the workplace, a person in a position of authority leaving or exiting. It can also be that there's just some shocking information coming out around authority figures, maybe even your father for some of you. Some surprising information, or you're surprising them. I'm conscious of the fact, Taurus, that Uranus is in your sign squaring this full moon. So you're kind of the wild card. You're kind of the one who has the Uno reverse card in this full moon. You're surprising people, you're surprising yourself, and you're maybe thinking a little bit more outside of the box, which is good for you. But I do think with this T-square energy, you're feeling maybe quite frustrated, you're feeling maybe quite stuck in some area, and this change is coming along, and it may not necessarily be the most welcome, or it may not necessarily be the most expected. But I think you're really considering under this full moon how this is going to be an opportunity for the type of change that may align more with who you're becoming. I can't emphasize it enough, Taurus, that you are changing all the time. You are changing quite a bit. And with that energy, you changing, sometimes the world around you can fluctuate and change as well as you do. You know, you can't stay in the same place changing all the time. So for some of you, this can be a role change, a job change, a professional title change, and this may surprise people around you. It may also surprise your family. So for those of you that are not working, this can be something that changes your rank, your status. It could be something you're putting out publicly. It could be that you're putting some information about yourself out there that is surprising to other people, maybe sharing something about your childhood or your family. For some of you, it can be a change in your reputation. You can find yourself getting some fame or status, whether this is welcome or not, under this full moon. So for example, some people may, if have Taurus risings, may go viral, and they may not have expected to go viral. And everyone around them might not expect them to go viral, but you can find yourself in the spotlight. Whether it is favourable for you, I'm not entirely sure, Taurus, because the square suggests perhaps not, but it also is an opportunity for you to overcome something. So if you are putting something out there, if there is something that you're putting out to the world that could be quite shocking, this can also be an opportunity for liberation of something in your life, or some identity in your life, Taurus. And we have this cazimi in your 4th house, the Sun, Mercury cazimi squaring Uranus. Again, you might be surprising your family. Someone in your family may be surprising you. Conversations may come up that are a bit of a shock. It can also be that you're getting quite a lot of clarity about a family member, about a living situation, about a property matter. And these can be things that you are given a bit more freedom, maybe a bit more freedom than you'd like. Or it's the type of liberation that doesn't feel so great at first. That can be something else that happens under this full moon. The fixed T-square energy for you, Taurus, is saying how you're changing all the time. But sometimes things around you change as well. And this is a moment for you to adapt and navigate these changes from the external as well. So it's an interesting one for you, but I do think it's quite a public one for you. And then on the other hand, we have a little bit of clarity coming when it comes to a home, private or family matter as well. And this is maybe something you've been going back and forth in your head about, Taurus. You've sort of been thinking, well, what do I think about this family dynamic? What do I think about this family relationship? What am I seeing here as a pattern? Where can I liberate myself from being so focused on this, or this communication not going the way that I want it to go, or this sort of loop-de-loop repetitive pattern that I'm seeing? You're thinking, enough, enough, enough. I need to get out of this. I need to change this. This way of thinking about it isn't suiting me. Having this back and forth isn't suiting me. Something needs to change, and it probably has to come from you. We also have mutable T-square energy under this full moon, Taurus, as I mentioned in the intro. Jupiter is in your second house, and this can expand your finances, this can expand how much you own, this can expand your confidence, your self-confidence. When Jupiter is going through the second house, it brings more opportunities to attract financial abundance. Sometimes this is, of course, for some, a lottery win. For others, this can be opening a savings account with a great interest rate. For some, this can be more opportunities to make money. This can be pay rises, promotions. And it can also be an increase in confidence and self-value, self-worth, seeing your value, seeing your worth, Taurus. Now, it's in a square to Saturn in your 11th house. You may be feeling at times a bit alienated, a bit isolated. Sometimes it can feel, with Saturn going through the 11th, that you don't have a friend in the world. Depending on what age you are, it can feel very differently. It also tends to bring about the type of friendships that are very long lasting, and it tests your friendship to see who's truly in your corner or not, who can come forward with you. It tests your friendships that are not Saturnian, so that are not in it for the long run, that are not committed, that are not fair, and are not doing the right thing by you. So those type of friendships can exit. And you might find with the increase in confidence that you're realizing some of your friends are potentially a little bit envious or jealous, and that cannot come forward with you. They can be quite limiting factors in your growth, maybe your financial growth, maybe your self-confidence. Sometimes these shifts can change relationships around us as well. So you might be navigating that. With Venus being in your 5th house, Taurus, you may also be finding that when it comes to dating, when it comes to love, you're trying to figure out if you're connecting with people romantically, whether this is, a partner that you have, or if you're single who you're dating, whether they have good future potential. It's not so carefree. It's not so carefree. You're sort of thinking, is this person a good fit for my long-term vision? You might also think, is this person going to be a good parent, if that's something you're looking for? You might also be thinking, is this person fundamentally, aside from the romance of it all, a friend? And some of you might be navigating whether a friend could be more as well. For some of you that it's not to do with that, it can be that your relationships with your children, you're sort of thinking, how can I be more of a friend to my child, or am I being too much of a friend and not enough of a parent? That can be something that's going on as well. There can also be a bit of surprise expenses when it comes to children in your life, when it comes to creative pursuits, or when it comes to dating. So say, for example, you're going on a date under this full moon, it might actually cost you a little bit more than you realized, or you might be noticing whether or not you're dating someone or entertaining someone for a confidence boost or an ego boost or something like that, Taurus. I'm going to get you a tarot card for this full moon. Ooh, 10 of Coins, a family legacy, this card said. So this is all about your legacy, privilege, security, estate. There could definitely be something coming up about property or living situation, or about the family. It might also be for some of you that are part of a family business. Maybe you have the opportunity to step in as the new role. Maybe your parent is retiring, or your boss is leaving. Some of you could find yourself very in the spotlight for your career, or figuring out what kind of legacy that you want to leave, Taurus. Bear in mind, Pluto is transiting your 10th, so you may very well be experiencing a strong pull to the legacy that you want to leave behind. You might feel really obsessed at times, and this is a long transit, but it's sort of activating, well, not sort of, it is activating the Jupiter Saturn square from 2020. I think a lot of you are going to want to focus on leaving behind a legacy that surpasses your death, something that you leave behind for when you go. And that might be where your career is headed, wanting a bit of legacy, something you can leave behind that will always be remembered. Taurus. That's very Pluto in the 10th. That is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Gemini, welcome to the full moon in Aquarius for your sign. So Gemini, this full moon is happening in your 9th house. If you're traveling around this time, don't expect it to be smooth sailing. We still have Mercury retrograde. We are experiencing a lot of tension in the skies. And that can be literally in the skies. There can be issues with airports. There can be issues with planes. And I don't mean that in a scary way. I just mean that in terms of travel arrangements, things can be very up and down at this time. Shock, changes, unexpected issues. So if you are traveling under this full moon, make sure that you have everything that you need. Make sure that you have things to distract you if you experience delays. Make sure that you are coping. You know, you've breath work to do, you've meditation to do, you've something that can help you stay grounded. If your plane has to be grounded, you know, that kind of thing. But I think for a lot of you Gemini, there could be unexpected changes and twists and turns when it comes to travel arrangements. And that could be quite unfortunate because maybe you're thinking, well, I need to be here by a certain time. Expect the unexpected if you are traveling under this full moon. It's happening in your 9th house of travel and journeys. So there can be unexpected developments, Gemini. So this can also be to do with your higher education. If you are studying, if you're in university, if you're in college, there can be twists and turns happening here. Now, there can be a lot of things that happen out of nowhere, Gemini, because the square is coming from Uranus in your 12th house of the unseen. So there can be an unexpected development when it comes to an exam you're sitting, a graduation, a degree. There's some element of it that you weren't anticipating, that you didn't see coming. You might, if you're in a course of study or you're studying something or you're traveling, you might realize that you've really been self-sabotaging. So say for example you're in college and you've been out partying every night instead of studying for an exam because you've always been really smart, so you've taken it for granted, and then you get a really bad result. You might think, oh, I have to get this together. I have to work a little bit harder on this. Or say, for example, it's the opposite and that you're studying all the time and not having any social university experiences. You might realize under this full moon that you've not been, for example, invited to a party because people are so used to you saying no. It can be where you realize there's some self-sabotaging behavior going on when it comes to your higher education. And if it's not higher education, it's likely travel for a lot of you. Say you forget your passport, say you didn't check your flight details, and you know, because with a Mercury retrograde, double check everything, and then you miss your flight. So just be doubly mindful. Forewarned is forearmed. Check all the details twice. But then it can also be that, you know, a delay, a weather issue comes out of nowhere, a thunderstorm, a lightning storm, something like that. Now, if it's neither of those things, it can be your relationship to God, it can be your faith, it can be your spirituality, where you're just feeling a little bit like, oh, I didn't see this coming, and now I'm questioning my faith, I'm questioning my beliefs, I'm questioning everything. It can be something that's coming up at this time as well, with the square to Uranus. Now, at the same time, we have this Sun-Mercury cazimi, which affects you very much as a Gemini, and it's happening in your 3rd house. There can be something coming up with a car, a vehicle, and there can be something coming up in your local community. If you've been a bit back and forth, there's been an issue with a car, there's been an issue with a vehicle, you've not been able to get to the bottom of it, this full moon might illuminate it. And I hate to say this, but it might have some hidden costs you weren't expecting. And that could be quite frustrating. That might be something you've been dealing with this month. It can also be that perhaps you're getting some news out of nowhere that you weren't expecting. You might realize that something has been said behind your back, something's been discussed behind your back. Someone could accidentally send you a message about you to you, and you're thinking, oh, great. So it can be that kind of thing that's coming up as well. Your siblings could give you some news, your neighbours could give you some news you weren't anticipating, a letter, a document, and you're feeling quite frustrated about this because you're thinking, oh, I thought this was fine. And some of you could be getting a correspondence you know, a letter, an email, a text that you just didn't expect, you didn't anticipate, and you're now thinking, right, well, what do I have to do here? What you might even be thinking, what are my legal rights? You might be consulting a lawyer, you might be consulting someone in a knowledgeable position who can help you with these different matters. There's also this mutable T-square going on at the same time, Gemini, which is saying, okay, you're growing, you're developing, Jupiter in your sign, you could be quite lucky. And maybe your luck is expanding, maybe you're growing, developing, your outlook on life is more optimistic, or you're looking to expand, you may be wanting a bit more out of life. Then there's this square to Saturn in your 10th house. And listen, this is the first full moon before eclipse season, and there's going to be a really significant eclipse coming up in your 10th house in September. Whatever your work situation is, it's going to change. I feel like a boss is stepping down, a mentor may be stepping down, someone in a position of authority might be leaving. You might also find your role, your status changing. So whether it's that your boss, your manager is changing, or you're changing in your workplace, there's change coming. Saturn being here is saying there's work to be done, there's commitments to be made. And if you want to set yourself up for future success, you're going to have to commit a little bit more. But it's also, and I don't mean this to be condescending, Saturn going through the 10th is also where we have to grow up when it comes to our work approaches. And I say that with some experience. It's where you have to take on a more mature role, regardless of your age. And if you do, you're rewarded with success. If you don't, you're rewarded with a, what is it called? You're rewarded with, you know, getting sacked, getting fired. I was trying to remember the name of this, the slip that you get. But I can't. It's Mercury retrograde. I can't. So, you know, you're going to want to commit, even if you're feeling optimistic and expansive and you want your freedom. When it comes to your career, there still needs to be some responsibility and accountability going on. And I do think for a lot of you, there's going to be an opportunity over the next couple of years for you to step into a powerful position if you want it. You might realize you don't want it, that's fine. But if you do, there we go. For some of you as well, it might also be you finally retiring or leaving behind a particular sector of work and in search of something more prominent. So for example, when Saturn crossed my midheaven, I think I've said this to you before, I became an astrologer. It was something I'd studied my whole life, and then I put it into practice when Saturn went over the midheaven. So it can be that type of thing, searching for your purpose. Now, Venus is in your sector, Gemini, of home and family. So you might be finding with Venus being there that you're wanting to socialize more with your family, you're wanting to socialize at home, you're wanting to be more present at home. The opposition to Saturn in the 10th is saying you've commitments at work though. So maybe for some of you, you're wanting to entertain people that you work with at home, or people that you work with invite you to their home, or you're trying to balance working from home, maybe searching for a career that allows you to balance your work, home, public, private balance. You're finding balance between those basically. So that can be something that you're experiencing at this time as well. And you might also find that you want your relationships with your family to be better, to improve, but you're also feeling like maybe they're being quite particular and nitpicky and detail oriented, while you're just wanting to see the bigger picture and you're wanting to expand and have fun. And that might be something you have to navigate, Gemini. So let's get you a tarot card. Oh, we have the Ace of Cups. Very cute. Overflowing emotion. For some of you, there could be new romance on the horizon. For others of you, there could be, you might be feeling more in touch with your emotions. Gemini, you might be feeling a little bit more emotional at points, and for some of you this can just be, you know, wanting to enjoy yourself and connect with others at this time as well. That is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Cancer, welcome to the full moon in Aquarius for your sign. So Cancer, this full moon for you, it's happening in your 8th house, which is a financial house. And this represents other people's money. So whether that is your spouse or the government, the bank, where you're getting money from another source. So your partner's income, your mortgage payments, a loan from the government, debt can be in here as well. It can be also to do with inheritance, the money that you're gifted from somebody else. And if it's not to do with finances, it can also be inheritance in terms of what you inherit from your family lineage, whether that be possessions or whether that be something psychological, something mental, something emotional. You know, when people talk about ancestral patterning, it can be in here. So this can be quite a psychologically testing time for you, where you're becoming aware of a pattern of behavior, you're becoming aware of something that maybe runs in your family, something that runs in your bloodline. And it can also be that you are perhaps getting some sort of information when it comes to your mortgage, when it comes to your taxes, your partner's money. There can be changes here with the square to Uranus, and changes that you didn't necessarily see coming. So expect the unexpected when it comes to these areas, whether that be the realization of a pattern in your life that liberates you, perhaps Cancer, and maybe can help change what your future looks like. Because if you break a pattern, it's going to change the course of your destiny. Even as that sounds very woo, very like a Disney movie, there can be, you know, a change coming in from the internal that changes the path of your life, the path that you're walking down. Because if you break a pattern that has long gone down your family line, you might notice that, okay, well, then things are going to start to change because you're not doing the same thing anymore. You're not feeling the same way. You're not carrying this baggage anymore. It's a good full moon to let go of some baggage, I will say. The baggage can pertain to something that, you know, you learn from a group, you learn from a friend, you learn from something that you're a member of, groups, teams, societies, because Uranus is transiting your 11th house of groups and your future. And you might also find under this full moon that as you want to change the future, you're going to have to work through some stuff internally. So say, for example, you want to, in the future, get married and have kids, but you've been going through these really dysfunctional relationships. This might be the full moon when you realize, okay, I'm going to need to literally sit down with a therapist and see what the pattern is. These are just examples to sort of help you see how these things fit together. It doesn't have to work out that way completely. Maybe, for example, in the future you want to buy a house and you're realizing under this full moon, well, okay, I'm going to have to start paying off this amount of debt to get there. But it can be that there's some surprising information comes up that you didn't know, but does offer some opportunity to change or liberate yourself from something long-standing. And it might not necessarily feel very comfortable. I don't think this is a comfortable full moon for anybody, Cancer. But with the 8th house activated, I can imagine it's really not a comfortable one for you. Now, there is this Sun-Mercury meetup in your 2nd house that is also activated by the square to Uranus. So for a lot of you, there can be some news or information or clarity when it comes to your money, the money that you're making. You can be double checking your bank statements. You can be double checking what you're spending your money on. Check your memberships, check your subscriptions to see how much you're paying. Because there might be some stuff that you didn't realize you were still signed up to or subscribed to. Or you might realize there's some things that you actually could live without for the sake of a better future financially, Cancer. And you're thinking, okay, well, I want to give this up. I want to pay this off. I want to stop spending money on this. And you might also notice where you're perhaps a bit emotionally connected to your spending, what the psychological component is. You know, say, for example, anytime you go through a breakup, you start to spend a lot of money on shoes. Not to Carrie Bradshaw you or anything like that, but it's just that kind of energy. You might notice where your finances and your emotions are connected in terms of your spending. So there's also this mutable T-square going on at the same time for you, Cancer. Jupiter's in your 12th house, Saturn is in your 9th. These are quite spiritual houses. Saturn going through the 9th can really push you to commit to higher education. For some of you, that's getting a master's degree, going to college, going to university, studying to become something. It's going to require a lot of discipline and commitment. And Jupiter in the 12th house can really expand your alone time. So for a lot of you, this is a great time to study something alone, to study something that is connecting you to a higher source as well, or a higher purpose, or a path. So maybe you're, on one hand, with Saturn in the 9th, you're having these tests of faith. You're really testing your belief system, what you do believe in. And Jupiter in the 12th is saying a lot of that exploration is done behind the scenes, done in your alone time, in solitude. You know, finding your connection to source when you meditate, when you pray, when you sleep. It can be beautiful for getting wisdom and clarity in those spaces. The square here is saying, how can you connect the two? So how can you study for a path, study for something bigger, connect to a higher belief system, while also having, you know, a life, having connections to other people. And the reason that I say that is because Venus is in your 3rd house, and this is really nice for socializing in your local community, with your siblings, with your neighbors, on social media. On one hand, the square to Jupiter is saying, but I want to be alone, I like being alone, I'm enjoying my alone time. And Saturn in the 9th is saying, well, I'm studying this, or I want to take a solo trip there, or I'm, you know, maybe you're studying abroad for some of you, or you're living abroad for the first time, or you're just feeling a little bit like you want to be away from where you usually are. Venus is about connecting you with whoever's in your local community or neighborhood at the same time. So it's almost like, on one hand, there's kind of a social energy, and the other hand, you want to be alone, and the other hand, you need to study, and it can be quite hard to balance all these different things, Cancer. Nobody's winning at the balancing acts at the minute. It's kind of how we navigate the contradictory and varying things that are going on at the moment, because there's a lot of different things going on at the moment. And with Venus being in the 3rd and Saturn being in the 9th, it's how you can find local community wherever in the world you are, where you can find social connection wherever in the world that you are, or whatever it is that you're committing to in terms of a higher path or study, how communication and connection still matters as well. Or for some of you, there could also be language barriers or language issues going on at the moment that you're trying to navigate too. And maybe that's something that you're studying as a new language. Your tarot card is the Hanged Man, which is all about seeing things from a new perspective, allowing yourself to take some time alone to contemplate, to shift your perspective. The 9th house is very much about perspectives, the higher picture. Venus is about the details for you right now. So you might have an epiphany at this time, Cancer, on what it is that you're thinking, what it is that you're believing in, and what it is that you are perhaps needing to shift in order to move forward. That is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Leo, welcome to the full moon in Aquarius for your sign. So Leo, this full moon is happening in your 7th house of relationships. So this can be a very significant relationship in your life that is highlighted under this time. That can be a romantic partner or spouse. That can also be a best friend, a business partner, whatever the case may be. It's being highlighted under this particular full moon. I feel as though with Uranus being in the 10th house squaring this full moon, if you're in a business relationship, particularly, you know, you work with someone one-on-one for business purposes, or you're collaborating with someone, there could absolutely be a bit of a shock or a plot twist within that working relationship, within that business relationship. Some of you might have a surprising change when it comes to a boss or an authority figure, and that might change your relationship dynamic. And you might find that there's a bit of uncertainty and instability, Leo, in your workplace. And this might come from something that you say, where you put the cat among the pigeons. The Sun Mercury Cazimi is happening in your 1st house, so you may have something to say that shocks a boss, or a boss might have something to say that shocks you, but it feels as though there's a pretty surprising communication coming with someone in the workplace, and this may change your working relationship. It can also be that you you know, there's something changing or shifting when it comes to a partnership or a relationship in your life. So your partner or your spouse may surprise you, and this can be quite a shock. Something that they have to tell you, maybe something to do with their parents, maybe something to do with their work, maybe something to do with their career. They might have something to make public that comes as news to you that could be quite surprising. There can be shocking changes in your relationships. For some of you, I will say this can be the end of a relationship. This can be closure on a relationship based on something surprising, something you didn't see coming, or just something that feels quite unstable, or it's affecting your ability to feel stable, Leo. So on one hand, I do say some of you could be having like shock engagements because of the square to Uranus. Sometimes squares are not always so bad. It can be unexpected proposals. But I do think for a lot of you, it can be unexpected information coming up that really affects a relationship in your life, really maybe doesn't feel so stable right now, or maybe changes your perspective of the person. And it can be a little bit jarring. At least one relationship in your life, whether it's your marriage or whether it is your partner or whether it's a business partner, there's something unexpected changes, and I think it could drive up a bit of conflict. You might also find that you have an enemy in the workplace, and if this isn't a hidden thing, this is like a competitor, this is someone that you know is an enemy. It doesn't have to be malicious. It can be you're applying for the same job. You know, say for example, you've always had your eye on a particular role, Leo, and you're going for it, and now you realize that someone that you work with is going for the same thing, or they're competing with you. And that can be a bit of a surprise or a shock as well. There can be a lot of shocks in relationships. And you might also find at this time that you're noticing that people are trying to put something on you that you don't think is fair, based on maybe you're not having the easiest time communicating. I think a lot of you have something to say with Mercury conjunct the Sun in your first house. You have something to communicate. You have something to make clear. And it might be because of someone else's misinterpretation of you. It might be because of someone else's misunderstanding of what it is you're trying to say or what it is that you're trying to achieve. I feel like if you're trying to communicate, there's some stuff that maybe hasn't gone so well. It's been some misunderstandings, and you're maybe under this full moon wanting to clear them up. And you might decide you don't want to be in a particular relationship anymore because of it, whether that's a friend, a business partner, a romantic partner. If you're clearing up communication, misunderstandings and communication issues, you might think, well, actually, I'm kind of upset you thought that of me in the first place. That kind of energy can be coming up for you, Leo. So there's definitely changes happening in your relationship sector under this full moon. There's actually, you know, even the Venus-Saturn opposition is testing people's relationships at this time. So don't be surprised if you're feeling a bit uncertain of people around you in general. And speaking of Venus opposite Saturn, there's a mutable T-square going on as well. So with this particular T-square, Jupiter's in your 11th house. You're excited about the future. You're expanding your vision about the future. You're connecting more with your friends. Your social life is busy. You have a lot of events to attend, sometimes more than you can cope with, even though Leo risings tend to be quite social signs. You maybe have a lot of events to attend, social opportunities, that kind of thing. But Saturn is in your 8th house, squaring Jupiter. Saturn in the 8th house is where you're financially committed to something, you know, a mortgage, committed to paying off debt, committed to paying off money that you owe. With Saturn being the traditional ruler of your 7th house, this could be money that you owe a spouse or a partner or an ex, or a business partner. But it can be that you're just, you know, you're noticing the financial pinch of Saturn, where you have to pay, you know, a mortgage every month, or you're having to pay off debt, or you're having to pay more taxes or something like that, and you're trying to manage that with an abundant social life. And sometimes that can be quite hard. You want to go to all the parties, but you have this money due, or you want to, you know, you have this big vision of the future, and it's pushing you to be a bit more financially responsible. If you want to achieve certain goals in your life, you're having to sometimes not go to the party, or sometimes not go to all the social events or things like that, Leo, can be an issue at this time, or you're having to not lend your friends money, or, you know, because some of you could have been burned by that. But I'm getting the sense that perhaps with Jupiter in the 11th house and all these social opportunities and these visions for the future and all these friends, but you have these financial commitments that you're working through. Or perhaps you want to be more social, but you're dealing with a psychological issue that stops you being more social. For some of you, that could be that you're working through some issues with a therapist that have made you quite reclusive, for example. And you're with Jupiter in the 11th, you want to be social, you want to meet people. So you're having to work through those. That's only for a couple of you though. And Venus being in your 2nd house is saying, I want to buy nice things. I want to buy nice things. I want to spend my money on things that I enjoy, but I know that I have to pay this off, and I know that I owe this person money. And you're balancing out how you treat yourself with how you can also be financially responsible at the same time, Leo. So let's get you a tarot card. See what comes up. Ooh, the Empress. Beautiful. Very Venusian. So yes, you're wanting to buy the nice things, you're wanting to enjoy life's luxuries, you're wanting to buy that silk shirt, you're wanting to buy yourself some flowers, you're wanting to spruce up your home or whatever. For some of you, this could also be maybe for some of you are pregnant, some of you are learning that someone around you is pregnant, maybe some of you are becoming parents for the first time, or some of you have something coming up with your mother as well, with the Empress being here, but that's only for some of you. I feel like for a lot of you this could be to do with just enjoying the more sensual side of life with Venus in the 2nd and trying to figure out how to embrace that amidst your financial responsibilities, Leo. That is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Virgo, welcome to the full moon in Aquarius for your sign. So Virgo, this full moon is happening in your 6th house, and this is to do with your work life, so your relationship to your co-workers, your employees, your staff. It can also be the work that you do, the services that you provide, and it can also be to do with your health, your well-being, what you do for your health, or how your health is going currently. Now, these are the areas where there's some instability, there's some shocks, Virgo. So someone can be unexpectedly exiting your workplace. This could be an employee, this could be a co-worker, someone could be changing roles, changing jobs, and this may be a shock, or this may have been a shock. And you're trying to navigate this the best way that you can. Uranus is going through your 9th house at the moment, so there could be people entering and leaving the workplace who maybe come from foreign lands, working with people from foreign lands, working with people who maybe have a very different education to you, with Uranus being there, someone who has a very different way of learning, a very different learning style. There could be some language issues to navigate. Some of you might also find that there's people leaving your workplace to go travel, or to free themselves, to liberate themselves, to study as well, maybe going to university or going to college or something like that. Those can be the types of changes that come in. You could definitely get work news or changes from abroad. Say, for example, you work for a particular job and your company gets bought over by a foreign company, you know, like when Homer was working in the power plant and Mr. Burns sold it to the German guys. There were all these changes. I put too many Simpsons references in these horoscopes. I'm gonna have to stop. It really exposes me as a millennial. But anyway, there can be changes going on there in your workplace, and they can be surprising, they can be shocking, they can really turn your daily routines upside down, but they can also be kind of freeing. This might give you a little bit more space than you expected. And when nothing is certain, anything's possible. So this can give you some room to make changes. It's worth noting that there's also this mutable T-square happening at the same time, and Pluto is activating the last Jupiter Saturn meetup in your work sector in 2020. So think back to December 2020. What were you sort of thinking about work-wise or health-wise at that time? Because it's being activated now. And powerful change is afoot when it comes to the work that you do and the services that you provide. And for a lot of you, it's an opportunity for more power in your workplace or in terms of personal choices. Virgo. So yes, there's the square to Uranus, but there's also this unexpected element of this that really comes out of nowhere for you, because there's this Sun-Mercury meetup in your 12th house. So you might get news about something that really you didn't see coming. It's a blind spot. The 12th house is a blind spot. So whether this is that you realize that someone you thought was a certain character in your life was actually not. They could have been a saboteur, they could have been deceitful, they could have been discussing you behind your back or something like that, or someone could have been saying things that worked against you behind your back. And I do not mean that in a way to make you paranoid, Virgo, but this can be the case. What I think is more likely the case is where you have been self-sabotaging, because it's a Sun-Mercury cazimi. Mercury is your ruling planet. Where you have been self-sabotaging yourself, where you have been thinking in a way that limits you, thinking in a way that stops you from doing something, saying something. And you might be getting clarity on that, and it could be kind of surprising. You might realize, oh, you might actually notice how much you've been thinking in a certain paradigm, putting yourself in a certain box, thinking wise, belief system wise. And you might start to realize under this full moon, I actually want to open up to a new perspective. I want to open up to a new way of thinking, a new belief system. And you might, if you're, with this, the 12th and the 9th house activated, you might be seeking counsel from somebody who's maybe giving you some advice that really surprises you. It might sting you a little bit, but it makes sense and it gives you clarity. Some of you might have a really illuminating dream about someone or something, and you might think, okay, I realize what is going on here. But I do think for a lot of you, you may notice where there have been things going on behind the scenes that were a little bit shady or unfair. I think maybe people have been saying things about you, or acting behind the scenes in a way that is quite surprising to you. It can also be, as I say, that it's you realize where you've been self-sabotaging yourself, Virgo. There's a big theme of self-love coming up in this for you, because Venus is in your sign under this full moon, and it's part of the mutable T-square. 2 T-squares in one full moon is quite astrologically intense. Venus being in your sign is saying, look after yourself, care for yourself, love yourself, respect yourself, believe in yourself. You're a very critical sign, and most of that criticism is directed inward. And when other people view you as critical, because you can be, when other people view you as critical, we cannot be what we don't turn inward. So you might be finding that you're realizing if you hurt someone else's feelings by being quite critical, you might think, well, actually, maybe if I was a little bit less harsh on myself, I wouldn't find this sort of relationship difficulty coming up. Because one thing that is a bit challenging at the moment, Virgo, is your relationship to someone else, or the concept of a relationship to someone else. So Saturn is in your sector of relationships. So if you've been working with someone one-on-one, there can be someone basically in your life is acting as a lesson. Is acting as a very significant lesson in this lifetime for you, with Saturn in your 7th house of relationships, whether it's your spouse, your partner, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, a business partner. They're a tough lesson for you under this full moon. And that can be because you're learning how to commit to a relationship. This can be because you're learning lessons about life through a relationship. Sometimes they're kind of harsh with Saturn. Sometimes they can be very rewarding. And it's squaring Jupiter in your 10th house of your professional life and your professional image. So there can be this tension with a business partner about how your public image is, your public image together. A really good example of this as a Virgo rising is Justin Baldoni, and as a Virgo sun, Blake Lively, and how they're navigating their press tour and how it's affecting their public images. It's just one example that I have noticed, because I saw all that scandal come up and I had to look up their astrology just to know. But it can be that, you're having this confusion about how you're appearing publicly, what's next in career, how you're growing, and how that's going to work with a business partner or even a relationship, a romantic relationship, maybe where you're growing your career, but you're thinking, I would actually quite like somebody, you know, because Saturn can sometimes be quite restrictive. Maybe you're realizing, oh, there's nobody there to celebrate this with. And you're maybe thinking, okay, well, how can I commit to getting that? Or you're maybe thinking, what would make a long-term relationship successful while I expand my career, and how you can balance the two. They're a square. You can balance the two, but it can sometimes require a little bit of adjustment. You know, you do a little bit more here, you do a little bit less there, and then you balance it back, that kind of thing. With Venus being in your sign opposite Saturn in your relationship sector, it's about balancing your needs with a partner's needs, whether that's your business partner or a romantic partner, and how you can work on that, Virgo. And of course, this is the last full moon before the eclipse season in that sign. Whatever your relationship status is, Virgo, it is going to change in some way, shape or form. And when we have this lunar eclipse coming up next month in your partnership, your relationship sector, there's going to be some significant changes in your partner's life, in your relationship life, in your relationship status. That does not mean, for those of you that are married, that you're going to get divorced, by the way. But it can be that your partner's status is going to change and you're going to have to adapt to that. For example, let's get you a card, Virgo, and see what comes up for you. So we have the Four of Swords. This is about going within, taking a break, healing, recalibrating. This full moon's happening in your sector of health. For the sake of your health, Virgo, take a rest, take a pause. It will not kill you to take a rest, to take some time off, to take the foot off the pedal for a little bit and recalibrate and retreat. Take some time to yourself, pamper yourself, get a face mask, whatever it is that makes you feel relaxed, Virgo, and prioritize some rest around the time of this full moon. That is what I have for you. I'll talk to you soon. Hi Libra, welcome to the full moon in Aquarius for your sign. I don't know if you can hear that, but someone just revved their engine outside my window. So maybe something's revving up for you at the time of this full moon, Libra. I believe in signs, I believe in synchronicities, so maybe there's something going on there. Or you're wanting to get something going. But this full moon is happening in your 5th house. For a lot of you, this is going to illuminate something going on with a child. Now, if you don't have children, stay tuned. I will focus on all aspects of this. For those of you that do have children, there can be something rather surprising coming up, something that's a bit of a shock. It doesn't matter what age your children are, they could be adults, but you might learn something about a child of yours that you didn't expect, you didn't see coming. Maybe your adult child eloped, maybe they got married, maybe something is coming up with a child and it's to do with perhaps parental support payments from an ex or your spouse, their money, because there's a square to Uranus in the 8th, so there can be some financial changes around your children. There can be some shocks and surprises when it comes to money and your children, maybe their money or maybe the money that you receive to care for your child, or your partnership and the money that you make together to look after a child. Or perhaps it can be that in an intimate relationship where you share children, something's coming up with a child and you might find that someone around you is being non-committal and being a bit evasive and a bit, you know, they're seeking freedom and you're sort of thinking, well, what am I supposed to do here? There's an element of shock and surprise going on, Libra, when it comes to your children, regardless of their age. This full moon is illuminating that. And I do feel for most of you there's a psychological link to this, where perhaps you're realizing that your child has something that's inherited through the bloodline, whether that be from a mental health perspective, whether that be from a physical perspective, or whether that be ancestral karma. Maybe you're noticing a child repeat a pattern that has gone through your family. Because the 8th house is inheritance, but inheritance isn't always to do with the money and the possessions that we accumulate from our ancestors. It can actually be what goes through the bloodline. And it can also be that if you have an adult child, or a very spiritually aware young child, they're maybe talking to you about ancestral karma or patterns, or they're a bit inquisitive about what runs in the bloodline or their ancestry and things like that. Can be something that you're noticing as well. Libra. If it's nothing to do with children, this can be to do with your love life. There can be some unexpected plot twists there. And it may be a case that you unexpectedly hear from somebody that, you know, you might find that someone has feelings for you didn't expect. It might not necessarily be the most welcome. Libra, to be honest with you, it could be a friend that you only see as a friend. You're realizing they have feelings for you. For some of you, it could be an unexpected plot twist in your romantic life, in that a romantic relationship may end. If you're dating someone, you might realize it's not going to go very far. It can't work in the long run. You may be a bit too different. You're maybe a little bit too on different paths. For others of you, it can be that you're getting some creative inspiration, and you could be inspired by things like the occult, tarot, astrology, or you're wanting to incorporate these into your creative practice. Some of you could be going to a party at this time. Libra, if you are going to a party, just bear in mind that someone may be very disruptive, or someone might trigger you a little bit by saying something or doing something. So just keep your wits about you if you are going to a party at the time of this full moon, or you're going to an event, because there could be a bit of a shock going on there by someone who is acting a little bit chaotic, wild, or out of control. Now, the Sun Mercury meetup in your 11th house, which is happening the day before this full moon, is going to be in a square to Uranus. It's part of the T-square energy that we're experiencing with the fixed signs. There can be a moment of clarity for you, Libra, when it comes to a team, a group. There can be some sort of news surrounding a team or a group that you're a part of. Perhaps if there's been a bit of back and forth on a matter or an issue there, you're getting some clarity on what needs to change, what has been happening, and this could be quite surprising. This might be something that you feel a little bit jarred by, a little bit, it's unexpected. But there can be some clarity surrounding a friend maybe, or if a misunderstanding with a friend, or a group or a team that you're a part of. We also have this mutable T-square going on at the same time, with Jupiter in Gemini in your 9th house. So for a lot of you, this has been more opportunities to travel, to expand your horizons, to learn new things, to expand your vision of the future. And the square to Saturn in Pisces for you in your 6th house is where you have commitments work-wise, where you have commitments to a job, to employees, to colleagues, and also your health matters. So Saturn going through the 6th house can sometimes make you feel a bit older when it comes to your health, regardless of the age you are. You know, you can sort of find aging is something that you're working with. You're trying to slow down, effectively you're trying to slow down the aging process with Saturn in the 6th. Or it can also be that you have more commitments work-wise to your job. With Saturn in retrograde, you might be rethinking these. Do bear in mind, with Saturn, it is about karma, it is about accountability, and with Saturn in this T-square, you might realize where you are not, you know, in some cases you can realize where you're working too hard for some of you, and for others of you, you can see where you've not been doing enough. It goes both ways with Saturn, basically. It depends how hard you're working or how much you're committed. Saturn always has repercussions. So you could find that you're wanting to travel, you're wanting to explore, but you have work commitments, or you have, you know, health matters that mean you can't do as much as you want to be doing, going where you want to go, or studying, or having adventures. And you're having to figure out how to look after your health and do your job while also expanding your horizons and maybe studying something new, learning something new. For some of you, that can be where, for example, you're at university or college and you have a part-time job where they're actually expecting quite a lot out of you. That can be a way that this is playing out too, and you're trying to figure out how to balance them, Libra. Venus is in your 12th house. I feel as though relationship-wise, people might be doing things or saying things behind the scenes that you don't necessarily see or expect. With it being in the 12th house, it's like the blind spot. So you can sort of find under this full moon that maybe some people are acting in a certain way that you didn't see coming because they're aware of things that you aren't. So maybe they're upset about certain behaviors from you that you didn't realize you were doing. And that can cause a little bit of tension and a bit of criticism in your relationships. Libra, it can also be where you're maybe not feeling particularly social with people you work with, especially with Venus in the 12th and Saturn in the 6th. You might find that you're just not wanting to go to your work, you're not wanting to socialize with people, you're finding them a bit too hardworking or working too much while you just want to chill, or vice versa. So your tarot card was the Knight of Wands for this full moon, and this is a very flirtatious energy, so there could be someone flirting with you. I will say, if there's a new romantic interest pops up over this time, don't be expecting too much from them. They could be kind of rebellious and a charmer and very exciting, but they might not necessarily be long-term potential, and it might burn out as quick as it burns up. That's obviously just for a few of you. But it might also be a case for a lot of you that you're maybe making travel plans under this full moon and you're wanting to go somewhere and have some fun. You know, it's a full moon in the 5th house. You're wanting to have fun and break free and cut loose. You're maybe not necessarily feeling so excited about responsibilities and commitments, Libra, and that's fine. So that is what I have for you. Hope you have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Scorpio, welcome to the full moon in Aquarius for your sign. So Scorpio, this full moon is happening in your 4th house. So this is your private life. This is your home. This is your living situation. This is your family. This is your ancestry. And this is how you feel safe and cozy in this world, essentially. And this isn't the most stable place to be right now, thanks to that square from Uranus. There can be some unpredictability when it comes to your home, a living situation. Your feelings can also be a bit up and down, a little bit erratic, a little bit unpredictable. You might really be wanting to break free from a living situation, a home situation, a family matter, or just wanting to break free of your emotions can also be another way that this plays out. You might find that if you have a partner or a spouse, they're acting kind of chaotically, unpredictably. There can be some unpredictability between your significant other and your family. A little bit of emotional tension can be going on there. It can also be that perhaps when it comes to a living situation and a partner, there can be a bit of unpredictability and tension there as well. And I think a lot of you are really feeling, when it comes to your home and your family life, like things are a little unsettled, a little bit unpredictable, probably thanks to a key character with Uranus in the 7th house of relationships, someone who is acting a little bit wilder than usual, chaotic, out of character, can be something that you're experiencing with a partner or with a significant relationship in your life. Someone is just playing a different role. They're doing something a bit differently, or they're not acting like they usually do. This can also be to do with, you know, a family member's partner relationship where maybe you're finding it a little bit uncertain as well. But there does seem to be a level of uncertainty and unusual activity going on between your home, your private life, your family, and a partner or a significant relationship, Scorpio. And then adding to this square, we have the Sun in your 10th house and a separating conjunction to Mercury. This makes the fixed T square. So the fact that we're having this cazimi the day before the full moon in your sector of career, your sector of public image, you might be getting clarity on something you've been back and forth about when it comes to what you want to do work-wise or career-wise, and what you want to put out there publicly. But at the same time, you're then thinking, oh, I want to pull back. I don't know, you know, this full moon in the 4th, you're like, but I don't want to be seen just yet. I don't know if I want this exposure. I kind of want to be at home. Or you have something to attend work-wise and you're thinking, I'd rather just stay in, kind of thing. But it's an opportunity for you to start something new career-wise. I think a lot of you are getting clarity on your next move in your career, or just your public image, your professional path, or the path that you feel called to go down. Doesn't have to be work-wise, but it's where you feel aligned with a certain path or journey. And your visibility. You're getting clarity about your relationship to your visibility, your work, your public image, your public life, Scorpio. And that might just feel a little bit out of sorts with what you want maybe in a relationship, or what you want in terms of your public-private life balance. You're getting clarity on how to get that balance, but I think for a lot of you, you're a little bit confused. Sorry, my voice is going. You're a little bit confused about the next path career-wise because of the Mercury retrograde. You're sort of thinking, well, what did I used to do? Or what skills did I have in previous roles or jobs that I can bring forward that would actually work for me? Kind of about bringing the past forward to this new chapter that was kind of beginning for you under the new moon in Leo on the 4th of August. So new beginnings career-wise, you're sort of thinking about it and how you can get more balance between your professional and public life and your family life. Some of you might have an announcement to make work-wise around the time of this full moon about what you're doing next career-wise. And I think some of it could be triggered by uncertainty with a key person. There just seems to be a person in your life, Scorpio, or maybe it's more than one person, who is just a sense of instability, inconsistency, chaotic energy, and you're trying to bring back some balance to your home and family life and your professional life too, which is tricky, but I think it can be done for you. So we also have this T-square going on with Jupiter, Saturn, and Venus in the mutable signs. So Jupiter is in your 8th house. This is going to bring opportunities until the spring of next year for your partner, if you have one, to expand their income, for their financial situation to be more beneficial to you. Say you're married, your partner may be becoming the main breadwinner of the family. It can also be for some of you that you're receiving more money from other people, whether that be the government, you're getting a great tax rebate or something like that. With the 8th house, the square to Saturn in the 5th, you could be experiencing, if you have them, some trouble with children here and there. And especially if you have young children, there can be frustrations with them. They can be slow to get something. They can be slow to do something. They can be a bit of a karmic challenge for you at this time. This can also be adult children, but you could be finding that they're just this sort of, I mean, children are a big commitment, but you could be finding them sort of this restrictive force in your life that's holding you back from certain things at certain times. Not always. Sometimes they can be wonderful lessons during this transit. You can learn a lot from your children. You can enjoy the commitment, but it can be frustrating at times if you have them. And you might be trying to balance that out with maybe expanding your horizons in general. You could just find that maybe they're a bit restrictive in that sense, particularly socially, because Saturn is in this opposition to Venus in your 11th house. You might have an opportunity to socialize, Scorpio, and you could find that your children are acting up or holding you back or need you. Maybe they're just unwell at the time of a social event at this full moon, and you're going, okay, now I have to stay home. Or you're trying to figure out how to have a social life and hobbies and friends and things, because maybe you have a newborn and you're trying to balance that, and you're finding under this full moon, this is a bit overwhelming, this is a bit hard. And you maybe people around you are a bit unpredictable, and everybody at this full moon wants their freedom. So it can be tricky to work with people on things. If it's not children, can also be that perhaps, romantically speaking, with Saturn going through the 5th, some of you could be taking a break from romance or a break from dating. If you're single, you might be thinking, this isn't really working for me. And, you're maybe thinking, well, maybe I should spend more time with my friends. Or you're maybe figuring out how to, maybe you're dating somebody new and your friends say, you never see us anymore. You're balancing your social life and your friendship life with dating, or you're balancing your friendship and your social life with having to look after your children or your responsibilities to your children. Or for some of you, it's a creative commitment, your creative art, your work, and how you can have a bit more social time while still committing to this particular creative project or endeavor, Scorpio. So let's pull you a card and see what we get for you, Scorpio. Ooh, we have the Emperor. Okay, so for a lot of you, this is to do with your career, your public image, your positions of authority. Some of you could be getting news about a position of authority, a role, a leader in your life with that Sun Mercury conjunction in the 10th, you could be getting some sort of news pertaining to someone in a position of authority, your father, your boss, and really figuring out what needs to be done career-wise, what you need to do, and how you've maybe been neglecting your energy of authority, maybe how you've been maybe back and forth and what authority looks like for you in your life, or personal autonomy or personal power, Scorpio, with that Leo 10th house of yours. That is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Sagittarius, welcome to the full moon in Aquarius for your sign. So Sagittarius, this full moon is keeping it quite local. This full moon is happening in your 3rd house of your local environment, of your community, your neighborhood, your relationship to your neighbors, your siblings, that kind of thing. So these are highlighted areas for you, meaning that there could be something happening for you locally at this time. There could be something happening in your sibling's life, in a neighbor's life, and this could be quite disruptive. So we have this square coming in from Uranus in the 6th, meaning that whatever is disruptive at this time, it might upset your local community, your routine. There could be, for example, an accident near your home, and this could cut off a road. It could be that there is some sort of event happening that's disrupting traffic, and then you end up being late to where you need to go. There's disruptions in your day-to-day life, so if you are journeying or traveling about, be mindful there may be a lot of delays and disruptions, or car trouble for some of you as well. The 3rd house is also to do with cars, so make sure that you know you have enough fuel. Don't be playing it to chance to get to a petrol pump. You might find that you need to see a mechanic about an issue. A light goes on in your car that you don't know what it means. There can be disruptions going on there, and it can disrupt your routine or your commute. There can be disruptions to if you get a bus timetable or train timetable. There can be disruptions and chaos ensuing for you in your local commute. It can also be that your sibling has a shock announcement, maybe about a job or a health matter going on in their life. It can be that you receive a message you really didn't expect to receive, maybe from someone at work or someone that you work with, or someone like a doctor or a healthcare practitioner. You maybe receive some information that you weren't expecting, Sagittarius, something that is illuminating, but you are kind of confused about what it means and where this came from. This can be very shocking information for some of you. And interestingly enough, this full moon is obviously happening in your 3rd, but it is opposite the Sun Mercury meetup in your 9th house. So the Sun meeting up with Mercury, the cazimi, in your 9th house the day before this full moon, this is giving me the sense that for a lot of you there is maybe some clarity surrounding a legal matter, a visa, a passport, travel. Maybe you're getting, for example, a passport renewed and it's different, maybe even name change, or you're having to, maybe some of you are changing your name legally or something like that. There can be a need to get some clarity there, but there can be errors with Mercury being in retrograde. So maybe you're getting a document and you're realizing there's a spelling error. You're getting your plane tickets and you're realizing the name is wrong. It doesn't match your passport. There can be some hiccup going on there that you need to get clarity on and get fixed. For some of you Sagittarius, with that Mercury Sun meetup in the 9th, there can be some errors going on when it comes to legal documentation, or when it comes to just documents and things that you need to travel or university. For example, you get your degree, they've printed your name on wrong or something like that. Can be a case, Sagittarius. So I feel like you're getting some news at this time. It's not incredibly clear. There's a bit of a surprise, there's a bit of frustration, there's a bit of irritation. If you have some news coming your way, there's something about it that kind of surprises you and you think, oh my gosh, I need to fix this, or oh my gosh, I didn't see this coming. That kind of thing can be occurring for you, or there can be a lot of disruptions around you, Sagittarius, at this time. We also have this mutable T-square. Now this is going to be of particular interest to you. So Jupiter's in your sector of relationships. For some of you that means, getting married, getting engaged. For some of you it means meeting someone significant relationship wise. This can be expanding your relationship life. Maybe you get a new business partner, maybe you get a new romantic partner, maybe you expand on your relationship. Maybe you're getting a lot of wisdom and growth through relationships, Sagittarius. The square to Saturn in your 4th house is saying that, okay, the relationship's growing, where are we going to live? What are we going to do family-wise? Are we going to grow a family? Are we going to have a family? Where are we going to put down roots? Who is paying for what? Home-wise, that kind of thing. Does your family like your partner? And your relationship choices, and what's the living arrangement, and how do you get on with their family? There can be some tension or things to iron out here. Venus is in your 10th house of career at the same time, which means that you're being really well received at work, and you're maybe having more opportunities to socialize with people that you work with. But you've commitments at home, you've commitments at the house, you maybe have a social event work-wise that would be really good for your career, but you've the plumber coming at 6, and you're kind of thinking, okay, well, how am I going to balance this out? How am I going to navigate this? Or how am I going to be more seen at work or in my career, or maintain my relationships at work and career when I'm always working at the house, or I'm always working from home, or, you know, trying to figure out how to navigate that can be something that's coming up for you at this time, Sagittarius. I do feel with Jupiter being in your 7th house, your relationships are growing and expanding. And then your commitments at home and with your family can maybe feel a bit contracting at times, and they can feel a little bit restrictive. Or your living situation can feel restrictive. Maybe you've met the person of your dreams, but you live at a distance, and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, where are we going to live? Or how are we going to navigate this? Or, you know, you have a partnership that's moving and developing, but you both live with roommates or something like that, and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, are we going to commit to living together? Is this too soon? Or is this whatever? You know, it's kind of navigating these different challenges. Or say you have a working relationship coming up with Jupiter in the 7th, and you have Saturn in the 4th. It's saying, well, where is our work? Where are we going to have our work premises? Where are we going to build our business? That kind of thing. Do we need to look at properties for this? There's going to be different ways that this is playing out for you, Sagittarius, but I do feel like there could be some surprising news and information comes your way. Maybe if you're waiting on results about your health or from a doctor, you realize that a letter got lost in the post that was looking for an appointment the day of. You get the letter and you're having to shift your schedule around and make it work for you. I also think there could be shocking communications maybe coming up from somebody that you do work with, or something like that. I do think for the most of you, on a mundane level, this is going to be travel disruptions and things like that. Let's get you a card, Sagittarius. So we have the 2 of Coins in reverse. Planning and execution, scattered, dropping the ball, overwhelmed and disorganized. Overcommitment and poor choices. I think a lot of you are really feeling a bit run down and back and forth, maybe with errands, or trying to fix something that wasn't executed properly, that wasn't properly planned, and you're feeling really frustrated and having to juggle all these balls in the air, Sagittarius, and you could be feeling a bit frustrated with that. That is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Capricorn, welcome to the full moon in Aquarius for your sign. So Capricorn, this one's a bit of a humdinger, not gonna lie. This full moon is happening in your 2nd house of money, of income, of wealth, of values, of priorities. So for a lot of you, there could be some unexpected financial changes, payments to be made, money to be spent. The square to Uranus in your 5th, for a lot of you, this could be unexpected payments for a child or something pertaining to a child. It could be unexpected payments when it comes to a creative hobby, a creative endeavor. You might have recently taken up a hobby and you realize how costly it actually is. You know, say you took up horse riding, you might have thought it would cost a certain amount, but maybe that's changing. The money that you pay for a hobby is maybe changing, the price is maybe going up or something like that. It feels as though there's a change in how much money you're paying for something, or maybe even for some of you, how much money you're earning. Now the square could be that some of you are unexpectedly getting money. It could be through something like a scratch card or a bet with Uranus being in the 5th house, but I also feel a little bit like this might not be something that you want to entertain for much longer. It might be a once off, it might be a fluke, so don't get too, maybe don't keep it going, because that could end up being very disruptive in the long run. with this particular full moon. I also think in terms of your values, maybe your values are shifting in terms of the way that you raise a child, parent a child. Maybe you're changing your values that you were raised from childhood. And maybe some of you are also thinking a little bit creatively in terms of how you're going to make money or how you're going to change your financial situation yourself. Maybe you're unexpectedly making money through a creative hobby. Or for some of you, you could have been trying to make money through a creative hobby and you realize it's costing more than you're making or something like that. So you need to readjust and make some changes. Now, when it comes to finances as well, the sun is in your 8th house of other people's money. At the time of this full moon, we've just had the Sun Mercury Cazimi. You could be getting clarity on a partner's money, on a tax issue, on government grants or payments or debts that maybe you've been communicating with someone back and forward about. There's maybe been some surprises coming up there, payments surrounding a child, payments surrounding a creative hobby of yours, money that you earn creatively, maybe money that you earn through a side hustle, and the taxes that you have to pay for this or what you have to declare. There's maybe been some clarity coming there. It can also be that your partner's financial situation is maybe changing, or you're getting some clarity about money. And this can be an ex-partner if you have children with somebody. There can be financial shifts in their life or changes, and you're getting clarity on their situation. Capricorn. I forgot where I was there. Capricorn. So yes, this is really affecting you financially. I think there could be some disruptions and shifts surrounding money or surrounding your perspective on money, Capricorn, or how much you're making. And it can be that maybe you've been having a lot of fun and now you're thinking, okay, well, actually I have to earn a living here. This has been great, but I need to go back to work on something. We also have this T-square energy, not only in the fixed signs with this full moon, but also in the mutable signs as well, Capricorn. So Jupiter is in your 6th house, and Jupiter in the 6th house brings a lot of blessings and abundance when it comes to health, when it comes to work. So for a lot of you with Jupiter going through the 6th, Jupiter tends to rule mentors. You could get a great personal trainer, a great dietitian, someone who's very knowledgeable. You could also find yourself working with people who are very knowledgeable in the job that you do. Great mentors. You can get on better with co-workers, make good friends with your co-workers. You could be enjoying your daily life a little bit more. It could feel a little bit more free, a little bit more liberating, a little bit more adventurous. Your daily routine could be more adventurous by what you're doing. Maybe you're having some time off work and you're traveling, for example, or work gives you more time off, you get more holidays. But Saturn is in your 3rd house and it's squaring Jupiter at the time of this full moon. So this is a long going story, but Saturn going through the 3rd can be where you have some issues or trouble with siblings, neighbours, your local community. You can find that maybe you have neighbours that are acting as restrictive forces. You feel a bit on edge around them. There can be issues surrounding boundaries, fences, gardens, structures, where maybe you just feel a bit boxed in by your neighbours or your neighbourhood or your local community. And it can also be that there's something going on with a sibling where you just feel a little bit like the relationship is limited or being tested at times, or you find them to be a limiting force. So there can be trouble with these people, but there can also be, at the same time, better commitments, more enduring foundations put down. Maybe you get involved with something in your local neighbourhood where you're taking more responsibility, or maybe you're committing to working through something with a sibling where there's been trouble. So that can be something that's happening for you as well. It can also be a time where you find yourself periodically without a vehicle or without mode of transport with Saturn being here. And I kind of get this sense that maybe around the time of this square, your local commute or your daily routines are disrupted. I will say with Jupiter in the 6th, because some of you may be thinking, well, actually, I have a health thing going on that's not so great because it's in a square with Saturn. Saturn's your 1st house ruler of your body. You might find that if you're struggling with a health issue, you can actually get a person who really knows how to help, very wise, but you might find you're a bit closed-minded in their practices or allowing them to help you. Try to remain a bit more open-minded Capricorn, and I'm not saying do anything crazy, but I'm just saying if you're struggling with something, you might find someone who has great knowledge and answers, but you feel a bit distrustful or a bit close-minded surrounding their approaches at times. But it can absolutely be a time where if you're struggling with something, whether that's physical or mental health, you can find someone who you really appreciate their wisdom and their knowledge. At this time, you might be a little bit wary of it, and you might be holding back articulating what you need to say. With Saturn in the third, you're scared of saying the thing. You're scared of communicating the thing. Venus is in your 9th house, which means that in terms of your social relationships, the people that you're getting on best with can be from different countries. Romances can be, if you're looking for romance, with people from different countries, different backgrounds, people you meet at university, people you go to college with. Because that is opposing Saturn in your 3rd, it can be that if you're traveling, you're maybe experiencing that you feel a little bit restricted, or you're dealing with someone from a different country, you could be feeling a bit restricted in a language sense with Saturn in the 3rd. There can be a bit of difficulty in communicating. There can be some cultural faux pas, body language and things like that. But it can also be that maybe you're having trouble between, your significant other and a sibling, or your significant other and a neighbour, or something like that. Could maybe not be getting along so well at the time of this full moon. Capricorn. Let me have a little look and see what we have coming up for you. So we have the Wheel of Fortune. So there's something karmic, there's something destined happening at this time, something fated. With the full moon being for you, Capricorn, in a financial sector, there could be some unexpected good luck actually pops up financially, or it could be that perhaps something just changes in the blink of an eye at this full moon that you didn't expect, but it feels like it's the right time. Something feels like the right time, something feels kind of fated, and you're kind of seeing how destiny has a plan. That's what I have for you. I'll talk to you soon. Hi Aquarius, welcome to the full moon in your sign. You're the star of the show, Aquarius. So this one is a very wild and chaotic full moon. You may be feeling kind of wild and chaotic yourself, or it could be that people around you are perhaps getting on your nerves a little bit. So let's talk about that. The full moon is always a time of illumination for you, Aquarius, for all of us. But when it's in your 1st house, you could maybe be feeling a little bit more emotional. You could be feeling a little bit more sensitive, particularly physically sensitive. So you might be feeling more sensitive to chemicals, environments, foods, the weather, energy. You could just be feeling a little bit more easily stimulated by external stimuli. And you might also be more conscious of your body, more self-conscious about your personality and your patterns. And you're just a little bit more physically present, I will say. You're just a bit more self-aware when the full moon is in your 1st house. But you could be feeling a bit jarred and a bit uncertain when it comes to a living situation. So there could be, for some of you under this full moon, an unexpected move, unexpected renovations, unexpected events in the home, maybe electrical with Uranus there, maybe the electricity cuts, there's a power cut, a power line comes down or something like that, or it can be family is a bit disruptive and a bit chaotic at this time. The people that you live with are a bit unusual. There's change going on at the time of this full moon, and I think it's making you quite emotional, this change that's going on in your home or your family. I think it feels very uncertain and unstable, and as a fixed sign you may feel as though you're finding it tough to cope with these changes. Maybe you've uprooted and moved. Maybe the foundations of your house need to be brought up because there's an issue. Maybe you have to have some walls knocked down because they need to put in wires, and you're just thinking like, really? Really? And it can feel a bit unsettling, I have to say, Aquarius. The Sun-Mercury Cazimi happening the day before this full moon, and of course the Sun will be in the square to Uranus. It's happening in your relationship sector. So that's an area of instability too. Your partner might tell you something you didn't expect, you didn't know. You might get clarity on something relationship-wise that feels a bit uncertain. It could be about a property. They could have got a letter about your home or your mortgage or something and they didn't tell you, and then it comes out under this full moon and you think, why didn't you tell me? They could be perhaps getting clarity in something in their life, or sharing something with you that you kind of wish you knew sooner, but it comes as a bit of a surprise. It can also be that you're getting clarity on a relationship issue, Aquarius. Maybe you and a partner have been back and forth arguing about something, discussing something, and under this full moon you kind of get it. You might share your feelings, your emotions with this person, and they might know what you're trying to say at this point, and you might get clarity on what the issue is, and you might have to make some changes as a pairing. It can also be that if you've been back and forth with someone from your past, a relationship from your past, you may be getting clarity under this full moon on whether or not this works for you. This might be someone that your family doesn't approve of or wouldn't approve of, or there could be an issue with a living situation. This doesn't have to be a romantic relationship that you're dealing with at this time where there's a bit of back and forth. It can be business, it can be a best friend, but I think a lot of you are maybe feeling a little bit, you're just thinking everyone's acting so weird, or I didn't know you felt this way, I didn't think this was happening, I didn't think this was the issue. Full moon's pretty illuminating, but you may feel a little bit more emotional than usual about it, Aquarius, so bear that in mind. There can be some tricky energy to navigate here. And I think with this, the sun in your 7th house squaring Uranus, you and a partner might be feeling a little bit on different pages surrounding family matters or living situations. And as I say, it can also be a business partner or a key relationship in your life where you're just finding this person a bit unstable or a bit anxious. Maybe your mother might also be acting a bit anxious or a bit erratic or a bit unusual at this time, Aquarius, and this could be something that you're feeling a bit emotional about. You might be feeling a little bit emotional about your relationship to your mother or something like that, or something might be happening in her life where she needs you. There's also this mutable T-square energy going on with Jupiter and Saturn, so I want to talk about that. Saturn is, after all, your traditional ruler, and Saturn is in your 2nd house of finances, where you're having to be more financially responsible, limiting your spending, being more cautious about your money, being more careful about your money. There can be periods in time where you're making less money. There can be periods in time where you're spending less money. And Jupiter is in your 5th house of fun and love and pregnancy and children and things like that. For a lot of Aquarius risings, there can be new love in your life, there can be a pregnancy, there can be a birth in your life at this time in this year-long transit, and this is maybe changing the way that you make or spend money, or it's changing your values. Maybe you're changing your approach on how you want to raise this child in comparison to your first. Maybe you're dating somebody and you're thinking, okay, well, this quality is more important in a mate than it used to be. I was at this play last night in a theatre, and it was these 2 women in the theatre, and they were saying something along the lines of, do you remember how you used to judge a man by how attractive he was and if he was really fit, and now it's like, do you have a steady job? So your priorities and what you want in a romantic relationship might be changing, or how you want to raise a child might be changing, or say you're pregnant, or say you're giving birth. This can mean that what you're spending your money on is changing, and you're trying to navigate your financial responsibility with fun, with love, with joy, with expanding those different types of things. And some of you might also be finally working on a gambling issue if you've experienced that in the past as well. And Virgo energy is at play here too. So there's a sense of being critical, looking at the details. Venus is in your 8th house, which is to do with other people's money. So you might be getting, a tax rebate or some money that's owed to you. Or you could have, paid off debt, or you could have got some sort of grant and you're making money through someone else. Maybe some of you are making money through a female, through a relationship. And the opposition to Saturn is maybe saying, okay, well, I've got this money back, but I'm not going to spend it on a pair of shoes. I'm going to spend it on something sensible. I say shoes because Saturn's in Pisces. So financial responsibility is coming up for you, Aquarius. Let's have a little look at your tarot, see what we get. We have the Chariot. Okay. Interesting energy, Aquarius. We have the Chariot. So for some of you, you're really determined to move forward on something. You're looking for what would make you successful, what would make you feel more focused. I think a lot of you are going to be successful in tackling an issue because you have the strength of character, the strength of will, and you're feeling very determined with this full moon in your sign. That is what I have for you. I'll talk to you soon. Hi Pisces, welcome to the full moon in Aquarius for your sign. So Pisces, I would bet that this full moon is quite illuminating for you when it comes to what lies beneath. So the 12th house is your blind spot. It is the parts of you that you cannot see, self-sabotaging behaviors, self-limiting beliefs, hidden enemies, whether they be other people or whether they be within you. This full moon is very illuminating in terms of the things that we don't ordinarily see or we don't easily see. You're not bad at this though, because you're a sign that rules the 12th house. But even then, the information that comes up at this time may surprise you. This can be that you unexpectedly, through journaling, writing, or having a conversation, have a breakthrough. You might have a bit of a breakdown, but a breakdown to get a breakthrough on what is going on with you subconsciously, what's in there, what's the pattern, how is your unconscious mind, your subconscious mind affecting your reality. You might come to terms with some stuff in there that needs to be healed, some past pain, some baggage, some feelings come up that you recognize and you realize, okay, I'm gonna have to feel this to heal this and move past it so that I don't keep having these repetitive events. The reason that I say this could come up through conversations or journaling is because of the square to Uranus in your 3rd house of communication. You might be unexpectedly having a light bulb moment when it comes to a conversation with somebody else. Writing, journaling can be very cathartic, but this information may feel a little bit unpleasant. It may feel a little bit frustrating and you think, okay, how am I only getting this now? How did I not see this before? How did I not intuit this? It could also be that you're learning something you didn't know about a sibling or a neighbor, and this could really shock you or surprise you, and you could think, I should have known this, I should have seen this coming. It can also be that there was something going on with your car or a journey that you missed a detail, you missed something that kind of sets back the journey or sets back the trip. You could be learning something about a trip that you didn't know if you're going on it as well, so there could be some surprise coming up if you are traveling under this full moon, Pisces. I also think you could be finding that there's a lot of frustrations at work. So we have this Sun Mercury meet up the day before the full moon in your 6th house of work. There could have been back and forth on a work issue, a work communication, and under this full moon you finally get to the root of what the issue is. It's probably tech related, it's probably miscommunication, it's probably technology or system errors, but you might finally get to the root of what this is. It doesn't mean you're not going to be annoyed or angry, but you might learn something work-wise and get some clarity on an issue that has been really hard to fix or really hard to find. There could also be some system issues or technology issues in the workplace around this full moon as well. You may also learn something about a colleague or a co-worker that is very frustrating and irritating to you as well. They may have been engaging in sneaky behavior or acting as a hidden enemy in your life, and you might finally get some information that gives you clarity on this person. And you may decide you don't want anything to do with this person anymore, but some of you might actually be set free from somebody who has been a bane of your existence in the workplace. For other Pisceans, it may be that health-wise, you're having a realization about your health practices. Maybe you've been back and forth and doing something and not doing something, and under this full moon you're thinking, okay, well this is actually what's best for my mental health. This is what's best for my physical health. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this forward and I'm going to lovingly say no to this, and really prioritizing your health and your well-being, particularly when it comes to what's going on in your local environment or what you're doing on a day-to-day basis in your routine. Do watch for disruptions in your local neighborhood, unexpected events and communications with neighbors. Unexpected visitors can be something that's happening under this full moon as well. Other things that are happening, the mutable T-square, this is going to affect you quite a bit. So Saturn is in your sign, Pisces. This is where you're focusing on your commitments to yourself, and working very hard on your physical well-being, maybe committing to the gym, committing to eating better, committing to a sleep schedule, sleep routine, committing to a personal goal, setting boundaries. But it can also be at the same time where you restrict yourself too much. You maybe eat too little, you maybe exercise too much, you maybe close yourself off from relationships. And that might be coming up under this full moon. Saturn is in an opposition to Venus in your relationship sector. There may be a potential to connect with someone in a relationship. There may be a partner looking to connect with you, but you're feeling a little bit like, how much can I give? How much should I give? Is this too much? Is this too little? What are the boundaries here? You're having to figure out your own boundaries in relationships. And this is good for you because you've had Neptune in your sign for years now. You've been kind of boundaryless and merging with other people and giving to other people. And now that you're putting boundaries in place, some relationships may change, or you may be navigating relationships differently, and it can feel a little bit hard to balance at first. But you can be committed to yourself and committed to someone else. You can have boundaries with someone and connect with them at the same time. In fact, that's healthy. So I think for a lot of you, you might be finding that in terms of relationships, you're trying to figure out how to be committed to yourself while committing to another person, or how to be there for yourself while being there for someone else at the same time. And family may come into this too, because Saturn is in a square to Jupiter in your 4th house. Jupiter being in your 4th house, you have more opportunities to spend time with your family, to travel with family, to expand your home, renovate your home, add to your family. There may be additions to your family. It can be a source of blessings. But you might also feel a little bit cautious, or you might be noticing how you have to give up some things to expand your home or your family. So say you want to buy a home, maybe you have to temper yourself on what you're spending money on personally, or you're having to make a significant sacrifice or commitment to buy this home or renovate this property. Or maybe some of you are realizing, okay, well, I'm having a baby now. How am I going to look after my body differently? Or I'm kind of giving up my body to this being for this time. That could be for some of you. That's the way that it could be working out. You have these physical limitations maybe with a pregnancy, but you're expanding your family and you're excited about that, but you're feeling a little bit less personally autonomous. Or you're having to eat differently because, now that you're pregnant, you can't eat certain foods. Or you're trying to buy a home and now you're realizing how much of a responsibility that's going to be. It's how those squares can play out, Pisces. It can also be that maybe with the square between Venus in your 7th house and Jupiter in your 4th, if you have a partner, you're thinking of moving in together, or you're thinking of renovating the home or doing up the home, and maybe there's, challenges in navigating what they like versus what you like. And maybe for some of you as well, you're thinking about, if you're having a date, maybe you're just not feeling on going out, feeling you want to go out, so you're having them over to your home, or you're going over to their home, or something like that. But that is what is coming up for you astrologically, Pisces. Let's pull you a card and see what comes up. Ooh, we have the King of Cups. So a water sign person, a Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, Sun, Moon, or Rising person may be playing a significant role in your life. It could be that perhaps this is also your energy, where you're trying to focus on your emotional center, healing your emotional self. Feeling more emotionally balanced might be your focus. You're maybe more aware. You're also very intuitive under this. Your dreams could be very vivid and very, they could be showing you patterns. They could be showing you experiences. They could even be showing you people that are coming into your life. And you might be feeling more psychic and more intuitive under this full moon. And you may also be trying to connect more with your emotions and emotionally master some part of your life, Pisces. That is what I have for you. I'll talk to you soon.